When most people hear the word Crusades, they imagine knights in armor charging toward Jerusalem, battles between Christians and Muslims, and a long saga of holy war. But the truth is far more complicated. The Crusades were not just a clash of religions, they were political struggles, economic opportunities, power plays, social movements, and cultural collisions that reshaped both Europe and the Middle East. Today, we're breaking down what the Crusade Wars were really all about, why they started, who fought them, what they were trying to achieve, and why they still matter centuries later. To understand the Crusades, we have to begin in the 11th century, a time when Europe was fragmented, unstable, and deeply religious. Most people lived under local lords, literacy was rare, and daily life revolved around the church. The idea of eternal salvation influenced nearly every decision people made. Reaching heaven wasn't just a belief, it was the obsession of the age. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, great Islamic empires, scientifically advanced, culturally rich, and politically powerful, controlled vast territories. The region was home to cities like Baghdad, Cairo, and Damascus, centers of learning far more sophisticated than medieval Europe. Jerusalem, sacred to Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike, was one of the many religious crossroads of the region. So what sparked the Crusades, contrary to popular belief? The wars didn't begin because of sudden religious hatred. They began because the Byzantine Empire, a Christian empire in the east, was collapsing under pressure from the Seljuk Turks. After losing key territories and suffering a devastating defeat at the Battle of Manzikert, the Byzantine Emperor Alexius I sent a desperate plea to the West. He didn't ask for a massive army. He asked for a small force of mercenaries to help push back the Turks. But what arrived was something entirely different. In 1095, Pope Urban II delivered a fiery speech at the Council of Clermont. He framed the Byzantine request not as a political issue, but as a holy mission. He claimed Christians in the East were being attacked, holy sites were in danger, and pilgrims could no longer travel safely. Much of this was exaggerated, but it worked. Urban called on knights, peasants, nobles, and anyone willing to fight to take up the cross and march to Jerusalem. He promised forgiveness of sins, honor, and eternal salvation. To medieval Europeans, this offer was irresistible. The First Crusade was born. Tens of thousands of people, soldiers, farmers, women, children, set out for the Holy Land. Many died before they ever reached it, but against all odds. The Crusaders eventually captured Jerusalem in 1099 in a siege so brutal that even medieval chroniclers describe the bloodshed with horror. The city's Muslim and Jewish inhabitants were killed, and the Crusaders established new Christian states in the region, known as the Crusader kingdoms. So what were the Crusades about? At their core, the Crusades were driven by a powerful mix of motives. Religion was the spark. People genuinely believed they were fighting for God. But for many leaders, political power, land, wealth, and prestige were just as important. Younger sons of European nobles saw the Crusades as a chance to gain territories they could never inherit at home. Merchants saw profitable trade routes. Kings saw an opportunity to strengthen their influence. And the Catholic Church saw a chance to demonstrate its authority over all of Europe. On the Islamic side, reactions varied. At first, many Muslim rulers didn't see the Crusaders as a major threat. The Islamic world at the time was politically divided, with rival dynasties competing for control. But over time, leaders like Zengi, Nur ad-Din, and most famously, Saladin began unifying Muslim forces to push back. Saladin's recapture of Jerusalem in 1187 became a legendary moment, one that reshaped the entire crusading movement. This led to the Third Crusade, involving famous figures like Richard the Lionheart, who fought Saladin in a series of battles marked by strategy, respect, and occasional brutality. Although Richard won several victories, he failed to retake Jerusalem. And the war ended in a negotiated truce allowing Christian pilgrims access to the city. As the centuries went on, the Crusades became less about the Holy Land and more about political ambition. Some crusades targeted Christian groups instead of Muslims. The Fourth Crusade, intended to reclaim Jerusalem, was diverted by greed and manipulation. Instead of reaching the Holy Land, Crusaders attacked the Christian city of Constantinople, looted it, and weakened the Byzantine Empire so much that it never fully recovered. It was one of the clearest examples of how the Crusades had drifted far from their original mission. Other crusades were launched in Europe itself against heretics, against pagan groups in the Baltic region, even against political rivals of the Pope. The late Middle Ages. The crusading spirit became a tool used by leaders to justify wars that had little to do with religion. So why do the Crusades still matter? Because they weren't just a medieval conflict, they shaped global history. The Crusades intensified religious tensions between Christians and Muslims that still echo today. They weakened the Byzantine Empire, paving the way for the rise of the Ottoman Empire. They stimulated trade between East and West, introducing Europe to new goods, spices, technologies, and ideas. They strengthened monarchies, expanded the power of the Church, and accelerated cultural exchange across continents. But perhaps the biggest misconception is this: the Crusades were not a simple good versus evil conflict. Both sides committed atrocities. Both sides acted with courage and cruelty. Both sides were shaped by the political, cultural, and religious forces of their time. Understanding the Crusades means understanding that history is never simple and that people are rarely motivated by just one thing. By exploring the Crusades honestly without myth, bias, or exaggeration, we get a clearer view of how human beings justify war, how beliefs shape decisions, and how the actions of one era can influence the world centuries later. If you learned something new today, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. History is complex, surprising, and worth exploring deeply. And we've got many more stories just like this one on the horizon.